Hello, my name is Greg Harradine. In this video, I'm going to discuss how I composed my composition, The Good Old Way, and how it was inspired by a thought-provoking show by Claire Cunningham entitled Guide Gods. This is the sixth of my Caledonian Portrait pieces. Before you watch any further, please do take just a second and click that red button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Claire is a performer and creator of multidisciplinary work. She is a disabled artist, and a lot of her work explores the use and misuse of her crutches. The show that inspired my composition is called Guide Gods, and it's a fascinating exploration of the view that the major world religions have of disability. Are some people disabled because it's the will of a higher power? Or maybe is it punishment for sins committed in this life or in a previous life? Or maybe it's a test to be endured. Claire's show explores all these questions and more. Let's hear a little bit from Claire about how she came up with the initial idea for Guide Gods.
I had a particular encounter in Cambodia with two disabled men who were teachers in a school for disabled children. And one of them shared this story about relating his disability to karma. And I had internally, I didn't say anything, but I had this internal sort of reaction that was quite sort of like, I don't agree with this. This is really problematic. Doesn't work with my politics. But that was actually, so I was making a show, I was planning to make a show that was to do with sort of landmine survivors. And I made a sort of work in progress, but didn't take that work any further. But that was where the seeds for Guide Gods began, which then became about actually this aspect of like, religion is actually a huge, I'm not someone who follows a faith, but the percentage of the world population that does follow some faith is enormous. So it was like, okay, then in actual fact, this may be a huge influence on perspectives on disability, more so than sort of secular political beliefs. And I felt like I hadn't seen any work, any performance work or many movies, etc., that really looked at the relationship between faith and disability very much.
Music plays an important role in the show. Claire actually trained as a singer herself, and she sings several songs as part of Guide Gods. I took two pieces of music from her show as inspiration for my composition. The first is a song entitled As I Went Down to the River to Pray, which you might have heard in various contexts, but possibly in the film O Brother, Where Art Thou? The second is a song that I first encountered in primary school, and it is called Lord of the Dance. These two tunes are transfigured to a greater or lesser extent in the central section of my composition. Claire told me that she's a big fan of guitar music.
An acoustic guitar will get me every time. I'm a sucker for that.
And while I couldn't compose a guitar piece for this project, I do actually play guitar myself. And I deliberately chose a key that works well on the guitar for this composition, G major. The chords I chose also are easy on guitar, so G major, C major, D major, and E minor. These are some of the main chords in my composition. The title I chose for my piece, The Good Old Way, is drawn directly from the lyrics of As I Went Down to the River to Pray. Religion can often be seen as the good old way, and views that have been held for centuries can seem almost immutable. But in Claire's show, she challenges some of these views as they pertain to disability. I tried to create a composition that sounded largely traditional at first. A clear and simple theme, fairly straightforward harmonies, very little in the way of modulation, but then a central section which challenges and changes the two tunes I mentioned earlier on. Let's hear a little bit of the opening, more traditional sounding section. And now let's hear the middle section, where these two religious tunes are toyed with and played with, questioned. Since Claire is herself a singer, and she sings to wonderful effect in Guide Gods, I decided to compose and arrange my composition almost in the form of a song. The right hand initially plays a simple, unadorned melody, much like a singer, and the left hand accompanies. We hear what we might call a verse from bars 1 to 16, and then a chorus from 17 to 32. Next we have another verse and another chorus, but this time a second voice is joining in the right hand. We have a harmony, a sixth apart, almost as if another singer was joining in. The piece has become a duet. Now this could be interpreted in either a secular or a religious way. The religious interpretation would be that initially in my piece we have one person calling out for guidance, for succour, and when the harmony enters, well, that is the god or gods they believe in answering their prayers, coming to their aid. Or the secular interpretation would be, well, when one person calls out for help, who answers? Another human being. So it's another human joining in when the harmony enters, helping out that person who needed guidance, who needed succour. You can choose which interpretation resonates more with you. I think we should hear from Claire one more time. Here she is talking about her relationship with religious music and how that can sometimes be problematic.
One of the ways in which I am sort of touched by religion quite often is in the art that it has sort of created and inspired in the world, whether that's the music or the architecture or etc., the sculpture. And so my relationship to religion really only came through music. And of course, living where I do in Scotland as well, that was historically sort of Christian music, European Christian music. And so that was the thing that I also had a love of, like I love a lot of that music, but I also find that a little bit tricky to go, what is it to sing this stuff when you don't believe in a God, perhaps, but trying to sort of be honest about, like, this is my connection to this, but also, what is it to sing some of this stuff when it is also very problematic in terms of some of its messaging, that there's a lot of ableism and quite a lot of disability horror in some of the sort of scripture that has made its way into songs. So some of it is about, how beautiful I think the songs are. And then some of it is, there's a whole section that's about how problematic some of the imagery is. But at the same time, I sing one of the arias, or a bit of the aria from Handel's Messiah, which was one of my favorite things to sing as a soprano. But it's like this, it's a terrible, it's a terrible, terrible text around disability, disability as metaphor. And the use of disability as metaphor as well in this very problematic way. So that the choice of songs was partly about that sort of love-hate relationship.
I hope this video has provided some insight into Claire's work and into how I composed my piece based on her show Guide Gods. Now, if you're a piano player, you might be interested in having a go at playing my piece. And, well, if you want to, the sheet music is available. I'll leave a link in the video description to where you can get the sheet music. To find out more about Claire's work, you can visit her website, clairecunningham.co.uk. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you like what I'm doing, the best thing you could do is to become a supporter on Patreon. Now, my Patreon supporters all receive the sheet music and audio of every composition I write. That's at least one a month. They can vote on aspects of my future work. They can receive scores in the post if they wish, and even personal commissions, pieces written from me to them. So, what are you waiting for? Please consider becoming a supporter of mine on Patreon. I would also like to thank Creative Scotland and my Patreon supporters for funding my Caledonian Portraits project. Until next time, goodbye.